ladies and gentlemen, the life you're living today is a direct reflection of the standards you've accepted. It's not about what you hope for, wish for, or dream about. It's about what you've decided will no longer be negotiable in your life. Every breakthrough begins with a decision, not a vague wish, a real decision. The kind that says, this changes now. I will no longer accept less than I'm capable of. And here's what most people miss. Change doesn't start with a goal. It starts with a standard. It starts when you say, I refuse to keep living like this. That's the moment transformation begins. Not when things feel good, not when life is perfect, but when you decide to raise your expectations of yourself and back it with action. We've been taught to chase success by collecting knowledge, but knowledge isn't power unless you use it. What creates change is the ability to control your state, your mindset, your emotions, your energy. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're in a lousy state, you'll sabotage it. But if you're in a peak state, even with limited resources, you'll find a way. Your emotional state is the force behind every decision. When you're frustrated, you choose one path. When you're focused and driven, you choose another. So the real skill, learning to condition your mind and body to live in a powerful, resourceful state, not just once, but every single day. Because if you don't program your mind, life will do it for you. And life isn't always kind. Every day, you're training yourself. The question is, what are you training yourself to believe, to feel, to become? Are you training yourself to settle, to fear, to hesitate? Or are you training yourself to lead, to act, to follow through? That training doesn't come from one moment of motivation. It comes from repetition. Repetition is the language of the nervous system. You become what you do repeatedly. You want confidence. Do what a confident person does every single day. You want discipline, then act disciplined, especially when it's hard. You want to change your life, then build rituals, not just resolutions. Create standards that are lived, not just written. Every time you follow through on your commitment, you cast a vote for the future version of you. And over time, those votes become your identity. Change is not an event. Change is a decision reinforced by daily action, amplified by emotional intensity, and grounded in a higher standard. So listen to this every day, not because it sounds good, but because repetition rewires your mind, because the world will try to distract you, discourage you, drain you. And you need to remind yourself daily of who you are and what you're here to do. You weren't born to be average. You weren't built to repeat the same patterns. You are here to grow, to evolve, to lead, to love, to serve, and to rise beyond anything that's tried to hold you back. But that begins with a choice, and you must make it now, not someday, not when life slows down now. So raise your standard, shift your state, condition it until it becomes who you are. And if you do it every single day, I promise your life will never be the same again. Lasting change begins with a decision, not a desire. That's where everything truly starts, not in wishful thinking, not in hoping things will improve, and certainly not in waiting for the perfect moment to act. Real change, the kind that rewrites your future, starts the instant you decide that the life you're living is no longer acceptable and you refuse to go back. Most people say they want more out of life. They want more success, better health, deeper relationships, financial freedom. But wanting alone doesn't move the needle. Desire without decision is just a dream with no deadline. You can want to get fit. You can want to become wealthy. You can want to be fulfilled. But unless you decide, truly decide that it must happen and nothing less is acceptable, it won't change. A true decision is backed by action. It means you've burned the boats. It means you've eliminated all other options except the outcome you're committed to creating. That's not a casual interest. That's a conscious, powerful commitment. And there's a world of difference between the two. You see, decisions shape your destiny, not conditions. People often say, I'll change when things get better, or I'll commit when I have more time, more money, more clarity. But if you're waiting for life to make it easier, you'll be waiting forever. Life responds to bold decisions, not to hesitation. The moment you draw a line in the sand and say, this ends here, you take back control. You stop being a passenger and start becoming the driver. Decisions cut through excuses. They destroy indecision. They move you from being at the mercy of circumstances to becoming the author of your own story. And that is when momentum begins. Think about the most powerful moments in your life, the times when everything shifted. I guarantee you, each one of those breakthroughs started with a decision, a moment of clarity, a moment when you said, I'm done playing small. I'm done waiting. It's time. But here's what holds people back: fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. And so they hesitate. They dip their toe in the water of possibility, but they never fully jump in. That's not a decision. That's dabbling. And dabbling creates frustration, not fulfillment. The truth is, every time you hesitate, you reinforce the identity of someone who doesn't follow through. But every time you make a decision and act on it, you build the muscle of certainty, and that certainty compounds. It grows stronger with every step forward, even if those steps are small. It's not about knowing the full path. It's about taking the first step with full commitment. When you decide, this is who I am now, everything begins to align. Your brain starts scanning for solutions instead of problems. Your energy shifts from resistance to drive, and the world around you begins to respond in kind. Think of any high achiever, any person who's radically changed their life, whether they came from struggle, poverty, rejection, or trauma. At some point, they made a decision to rise, a decision to no longer accept the script life had handed them. They didn't wait for permission. They claimed their future, and that decision didn't just change their day, it changed their identity. You don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. What you need is to raise the standard of what you're willing to accept and decide that nothing below that standard will do. That decision creates momentum. That momentum builds confidence, and that confidence creates results. So today, ask yourself, what area of your life have you been tolerating? What outcome have you been wanting, but haven't yet decided to own? Because the truth is, your life can change in an instant, the instant you make the decision that enough is enough. And the power in that decision lies in this: when you decide, you reclaim your future. You stop being at the mercy of your past. You stop needing external validation. You realize that you are the one who sets the tone. You are the one who declares the standard. And you are the one who will follow through no matter what. That's where transformation begins. Not in waiting, not in wishing, but in making the one decision that changes everything, the decision to never again accept less than what you were born to become. Your emotional state is your most powerful tool. It determines the quality of your decisions, the consistency of your actions, and ultimately the results you produce in every area of your life. Most people think success comes from resources, time, money, education, connections. But the truth is, people with fewer resources often outperform those with more, simply because they've mastered how to manage their emotional state. That's the real game changer. Your state is the energy you bring into any situation. It's how you feel in your body, what you focus on, and the meaning you assign to what's happening. Two people can face the exact same circumstance. One falls apart, the other rises. The difference isn't the environment. The difference is the state they're in. One person is frustrated, fearful, reactive. The other is calm, centered, and focused. Same world, completely different experience, and completely different outcomes. When you're in a low state, everything becomes a problem. Small tasks feel overwhelming. Challenges feel like disasters. You overthink, you hesitate, you spiral. But when you're in a peak state, confident, certain, energized. Those same problems feel like opportunities. You move with clarity. You speak with conviction. You lead with courage. That's the power of mastering your state. What most people don't realize is that your emotional state is not random. It's not something you just fall into. It's something you can create shift and condition. But most people are not conditioning their state. They're reacting to their environment. If something good happens, they feel good. If something bad happens, they fall apart. They live in reaction mode, and that creates inconsistency, frustration, and lack of control. But what if you took control? What if instead of waiting for the world to hand you a good day, you created one through intentional state management? Because when you learn how to generate the right state on demand, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation to act. You act because you've conditioned the mindset and the energy required to win. How do you change your state? You change your physiology. You change what you focus on. You change the language you use. The fastest way to change your emotions is to change your body, how you breathe, how you stand, how you move. Emotion lives in motion. That's why athletes get pumped before a game. That's why music can shift your mood. Your body is a gateway to your emotional state. And if you're slouched tight and still, your brain reads that as stress or defeat. But when you move powerfully, when you breathe deeply, when you shift your posture, you start to shift your energy. And with that, your mind follows. Equally important is what you choose to focus on. Focus equals feeling. If you focus on what's missing, what's wrong, or what could go wrong, your state will reflect that. But if you focus on what you can control, what you're grateful for, or what you're committed to creating, you begin to access a more empowered state. You train your brain to find solutions, not problems. You train it to seek progress, not perfection. Then there's language. The words you use internally and externally shape the way you feel. Say, I'm overwhelmed, and your body follows. Say, I've got this, and suddenly there's strength. So you need to become the gatekeeper of your language. Speak to yourself the way you would coach someone you love. Firm, focused, and empowering, because your brain listens. And over time, it believes whatever you repeat. When you put all three together, physiology, focus, and language, you take control of your state. And when you can control your state, you can control your behavior. And when you can control your behavior consistently, you can control your results. Let's be clear, you're not always going to feel like it. Life will throw you curveballs. You'll have days when nothing goes according to plan. But if you let those circumstances dictate your emotional state, you give away your power. Instead, build the muscle. Train your state daily, just like you train your body. Make it a ritual. Before a meeting, before a big decision, before a workout, prime your state. Don't leave it to chance. Because the difference between people who achieve their goals and those who don't is rarely intelligence or talent. It's the ability to stay in a state that allows them to keep going. They don't wait to feel good to act. They act their way into feeling good. They don't let fear dictate their day. They override it with focus, movement, and vision. That's not luck. That's training. So if you want to change your life, learn to master your state. Learn to step into energy, confidence, and clarity, no matter what life throws your way. Because when you can do that, you don't just respond to the world, you lead it. Repetition creates identity. That's not just a motivational phrase. It's a fundamental law of human psychology and behavior. What you do repeatedly becomes what you believe about yourself. And what you believe about yourself dictates how you show up in the world. So if you want to change your life, you must first change what you do consistently. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient. Consistently every single day, whether you're aware of it or not, you're casting votes for the kind of person you believe you are. And those votes Your habits, your routines, your behaviors are shaping your self-image. When you show up with discipline every day, even in small ways, you're not just accomplishing a task. You're reinforcing the identity of someone who is committed, someone who follows through. Most people try to change their life by changing their environment, their schedule, or their goals, but they skip the most important step, shaping the identity behind those actions. Identity is not static. It's not something you were born with and stuck with. It's built, and it's built through repetition. Every time you take an action that aligns with the person you want to become, you reinforce that identity. And with enough repetition, it becomes automatic. It becomes natural. It becomes you. Think about how habits are formed. At first, it takes effort. It feels uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar, but the brain is designed to create efficiency. If you do something enough times, your nervous system starts to encode it as normal, expected, and easy. That's how brushing your teeth became a routine. That's how driving a car stopped feeling overwhelming. The same principle applies to success, confidence, focus, and emotional control. You don't need to wait for motivation. You need to create a structure of repetition that reprograms your thinking and behavior. Repetition creates momentum, and momentum builds confidence. The mistake most people make is chasing variety when they should be embracing structure. They want new routines, new tricks, new systems every week. But mastery isn't about novelty. It's about depth. It's about doing the fundamentals so well, so often, that they become second nature. If you repeat laziness, you start to see yourself as someone who avoids effort. If you repeat discipline, you start to feel like a disciplined person. This is not about perfection. It's about pattern. What are the patterns you're reinforcing every day? Because repetition is happening whether you intend it or not. And if you're not consciously choosing empowering routines, you're unconsciously embedding disempowering ones. The most powerful people in the world, the ones who achieve, lead, and elevate others, don't rely on feelings. They rely on rituals. They repeat powerful behaviors until those behaviors feel like home. They wake up with purpose, not by accident, but because they've hardwired their morning routine. They follow through on tough decisions, not because it's easy, but because they've trained themselves to move toward growth, not comfort. Here's the truth. Most people quit not because they can't succeed, but because they never stay long enough in the process for success to take root. They plant the seed, but they don't water it. They expect change without repetition. But repetition is the watering of your mind, your habits, and your results. It's the difference between a temporary burst of inspiration and a lasting transformation. You don't become healthy by eating one salad. You don't become wealthy by saving money once. And you don't become confident by giving one good speech. Identity doesn't shift in a single act. It shifts through repeated choices. You begin to see yourself differently. And once your self-image shifts, your results follow. So the real work, it's not in finding the perfect plan. It's in sticking to a simple, powerful plan daily until your mind, body, and soul believe that this is who you are. You show up every day, not just to get results, but to reinforce your belief in yourself. You condition your nervous system for strength, for commitment, for ownership. This is why it's critical to listen to powerful messages daily, to read empowering words daily, to review your goals daily. Not because you don't know what to do, but because repetition cements truth into belief. Belief becomes behavior, and behavior becomes destiny. So ask yourself, what do I want to believe about myself? What kind of person do I want to be? Then start acting like that person every single day, not once in a while, not just when it feels good every day. Repetition makes it real. And when you live it long enough, it becomes who you are without trying. That's the path to real, lasting, and unshakable change.